Hi, everyone. Welcome to the NCSFA webinar sponsored by our gold supporter, Club Car. We have Catherine Sturba with us today. As members of NCSFA, you're tasked with managing a wide range of specialized mobile equipment for state and university-owned fleets. We're pleased to have Catherine Sturba, strategy leader for Club Car, help you break the stereotypes of small wheel vehicles. With over 60 years of experience in the small wheel utility space, Club Car understands the importance of having the right vehicle to complete the tasks in your fleet. This webinar will help you understand the questions to ask to right-size your specialized mobile equipment fleet. And from that, I'll take it away, Catherine.
That was a mouthful. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm Catherine Sturba. As Lauren mentioned, I am the strategy leader for higher education. I am based in Augusta, Georgia, where it is pretty rainy and nasty, and we are still in our home offices actually. So I have two coworkers. They are large golden retrievers. If you hear barking, that is them. It is just the reality that we're still in. So I always like to let people know that. But I'm excited for you guys to join us today. We are going to talk about how these vehicles are not just a golf cart, which I know is a little bit ironic coming from what you probably think of as a golf car company. We're also going to talk about fleet analysis and asking the right questions and kind of how that can lead into your fleet planning. And so as we start to talk about these vehicles, we're going to get into the 3 C's later, and you'll see why that's helpful in remembering how to break that stereotype. So let's just start with a baseline. What is a stereotype? It's a widely held but fixed and oversimplified image or idea of a particular type of person or thing. Pretty sure that everyone knows that. But when I say small-wheeled vehicle, do you picture this? And we have a poll, so you guys can actually be interactive. You can type it in, and I think Lauren's going to pull that up now. There we go. So you get to click yes or no. I'll give everyone another second in case anyone's not paying attention. All right, well, we got most of the folks vote in, and no surprise to me, about 90% of you just said yes. So 90% of you have that stereotype that this is what you think of when you think of a small wheel vehicle. My guess is that you probably also think of this. So, and oftentimes when we talk about small wheel, people automatically make the assumption of electric and small wheel as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But let's get into what I said earlier were my types of utility vehicles. So this is what we consider small wheeled vehicles. They're also called UTVs, utility vehicles. You might hear them called that. I mean, this slide will show you a wide range. You have everything from an ambulance to an 8-person people mover. So they can have very different look, and they can be street legal, and they can be gas, they can be electric, but it's definitely not a vehicle that's meant just to carry golf clubs, excuse me. And so those 3 C's. So capacity is one, and then we're going to talk about getting the customization and connectivity. So capacity, customization, and connectivity. And so let's start with capacity. I'm a visual person. I really like to kind of have an idea of what someone's referring to when they're talking about these things. And so if you look at that vehicle all the way on the left, that is a Carryall 700. The average weight of a thoroughbred horse is between 900 and 1,100 pounds, and that vehicle can actually carry 1,000-pound bed capacity. When you take a step down lower to a smaller size vehicle in this class, you're looking at about 800 pounds. And so I'm sure many of you are moving sand and mulch, or if you're maintaining Capitol grounds or campus grounds, you know, there are uses of that vehicle for hauling that much material. And while I hope that you would never have to move one of these, this is a leatherhead turtle, and that's about 800 pounds. So you can see, while you might not want to put a horse or a turtle in one of these types of vehicles, it definitely has a lot larger of a bed load capacity than I think people oftentimes realize. It can carry just about as much material as you need it to when you're running around on your campuses. So the next C that I said we would talk about is customization. So we like to say that these vehicles are built for getting the job done. So whether you are preparing for commencement for the first time, being in person in a long time, or if you're managing campgrounds and have to pull away the trash for all of the different campsites, these vehicles have the ability to be highly customized. You don't have to customize them, but they have the ability to be highly customized. And so I think that's important when, again, you're starting to think about Stereotype. This is not just a 4-seater small vehicle whipping around the campground to pick up trash. You can actually look at customizing this vehicle to make your employees' lives a little bit easier when they're trying to accomplish the task at hand. And so that's where we look at some of the customization. You'll notice on the vehicle on the left, there is what we call a Versatach accessory, where you can actually put, a shovel there, or depending on the different types of materials that you're carrying, those accessories will allow you to work smarter and more efficient when using these vehicles. The last C is connectivity. So I'm sure many of you are very familiar with vehicle tracking. I think at the last conference that we went to, when we were actually in person, I think that was Austin, there were several companies that were presenting on both, tracking and analytics, and that's a part of what you guys do on a daily basis, and very familiar with that on full-size vehicles. But that is actually an option on small-wheeled vehicles as well. These vehicles can be tracked just like a full-size vehicle. What's different about these vehicles is they can actually also be controlled. So if you're looking at an electric vehicle like the one here on the screen, we can do what are called action zones. And so you can say, especially if you're on a college campus where, most students are looking down at their phone, and you've got people driving up close to buildings and things like that. You can either, this picture is actually from a campus where it says no wheel zone. So you could actually put an action zone that would prevent somebody from going through there versus riding around the sign, which we all know happens on campuses and in areas where we don't want folks traveling with vehicles. But you also have the ability to just have them slow down because, it's a high pedestrian traffic area. One of my favorite stories from traveling and visiting campuses, we were in Tempe, Arizona, and there was a golf cart on a main road, not a street legal one, very old, and a full-size bus was right behind it. And so there really is a lot of safety concerns when you think about folks being in different places and not being in the correct type of vehicle. So this is definitely a way to make your stakeholders happy, and definitely your risk management folks happy, and being able to control some of the places that these vehicles go. Okay, so I know earlier we said that you might picture small wheel and automatically assume electric. So these vehicles, as I said, do come as electric vehicles or as gas and diesel. There is definitely a use case for electric. I'm sure many of you have sustainability goals, whether they come from a governor or a college president who may not understand how hard some of those are to implement. Or if you are on a college campus and your freshman class comes in, and they're always the ones who are convinced they're going to change the world and want every vehicle on campus to be electric. So there's a use case for them for sure. The nice thing about these vehicles of breaking the stereotype for larger electric vehicles is the infrastructure necessary. You do not need a special type of outlet to plug in these vehicles. They are easily, use an AC outlet for them. It is definitely a way to meet some of those sustainability goals. And just the ability to ride up to any building and plug in an opportunity charge is a great way to optimize having an electric vehicle in this class of vehicle. The other thing that I would point out here is that oftentimes our employees are concerned about driving them because they have what we call range anxiety. They don't think that the vehicle will get a full day's use. But if you really start asking the questions of your employees as to how far they need to go, you'll start to see that most of these vehicles can last as long as you need them to in these types of situations. So again, trying to keep it interactive. Do your employees have preferences on which vehicles they drive? I think Lauren's going to pop that up. Yes. Let a few more trickle in. Most of you guys are saying yes. So about 80% again said 80% said that their employees do have a preference. We see this all the time, right? You know, Jim drives a Ford F-150. That's his vehicle. He wants to use that one. Some of your employees may not have that option, right? You do some sort of vehicle share, you're rotating the vehicles, but there's definitely a change management piece when we start to talk about you know, what vehicle you really need for a job and what vehicle you might just have become accustomed to having. The first part of my career was actually in change management and software. And I remember you start to ask these questions of employees about, well, what do you need the system to do for you, right? And they want all of it to be done. And you think, well, I could do all that, but then I'm not sure what you would actually have to do anymore. And then you've just worked yourself out of a job in some ways. And so always think about change management and kind of peeling back that layer with our employees and really asking, okay, you know, they'll say, oh, I drive on 55-mile-an-hour roads all day, when in actuality, maybe they're just crossing over a 55-mile-an-hour road. And so it really helps to dig in and ask the right questions so that we know how the vehicles are being used. The reason that's so important is because the total cost of ownership. A full-size vehicle is more expensive than a small wheel vehicle. I don't think that that's a stereotype we have to break. It's just something that should be included in a presentation like this. These costs are based on the breakdown of a vehicle within warranty. And, you know, what's not shown on here and is, you know, really important to remember is that sorry, someone put a question in, the sustainability, the carbon neutrality. So I do see a question. I want to make this interactive. So specific to electric versions, what are the available load capacities and how does winter use snow ice impact performance? Yeah, great question. The vehicles I referenced earlier have those are the bed capacities for electric, but I can get you any other specific information there. And also great question about winter and performance. I think that yes, you have to be careful about where you're charging it and waking them up in the morning, but generally we are okay with our electric vehicles based on our, you know, the battery technology has really come a long way. And I think you'll even see it continue to be innovative in both large and small wheel vehicles, but especially in these small wheel vehicles, some of the options that we have available allow for that not to be as much of an issue. But you are asking the right questions. And so that's a big part of what we do when we do a fleet analysis. So a lot of times we talk about right size the fleet, and that's not necessarily saying that you switch all of your vehicles over. You might not switch any of your vehicles over, to be completely honest. The question, it's just getting down to what do you really need to do the job? Do you need 100 Ford F-150s? If you have that sustainability goal in there, is that going to help you meet that goal? If not, where could you plug in some electric vehicles? You know, it's looking at based on budgets and based on the year and year and a half, 2 years that we're coming out of right now. How do you also right size your fleet to ensure that you are meeting your budgetary needs, right? So there's all sorts of different goals, and we really just want to make sure that we are meeting those goals. So we do a process at Club Car, and you know, this is just an example of something that we do. And it's an example, obviously, we do with higher education customers, but first, you basically need a school to commit. You need buy-in, and whether you have an advocate in the sustainability department, an advocate in the risk management department, this is something that you're going to want folks to be interested in completing with you, because you know we do need individuals to answer questions and help us understand the usage of the vehicle. And once you have that commitment, then we look at a full list of your vehicles. So, you know, what are you driving? Are you driving minivans? Are you driving Ford F-150s? Are you driving small wheeled electric vehicles? We then do a mobile friendly employee survey. So we create this survey based on your needs, based on your goals, that says, okay, what's the main job you do when you're in this vehicle? And it could be more than one. We can do multiple questions like that. And then we look at, okay, how many miles are you driving? And how fast does the vehicle typically go? And so we start to compile both the human behavior piece from that, as well as the asset list, and we can combine those and really start to dig into the data analysis. So I know you guys, I mean, all the groups that I work with, you are probably one of the best around your analytics and your data. You have to with what you're doing. And this is kind of our data tool that helps you get a better set of eyes on where your fleet is, both large and small wheel, with human behavior involved. And we can do tracking as a part of it. I know those are some of the things that you do with the large wheel companies that also help. But so this is an example, and this is a true example of one that we did for a university, and that we sat down and met with them. Our champion in this situation was actually the sustainability director. She had some large sustainability goals, and so they really were looking at if electric vehicles was the better route for them to go. And again, knowing that if they went with a small wheel electric vehicle, they wouldn't necessarily have the infrastructure needed for a large wheel or a normal size, not necessarily large wheel. So anyway, I think some of the data facts here are pretty fun. You know, you look at, okay, so 61% said, I'm riding by myself. Nobody else is in my car. But then when you look below it, the largest number of their vehicles were vans. So we drive around a bunch of minivans just so we can drive by ourselves, right? These are some of the things that when you put it on paper, it's a little more eye-opening. You know, the capacity questions earlier, when you actually look at what people are carrying, you know, they're not carrying, you know, more than half are not carrying larger than a horse in whatever they are doing, right? They're carrying less than 1,000 pounds. And so do they really need that full size vehicle that they say they need? 42% of the time they do, but there's a large percentage of the time that they don't. Average age of vehicle, you know, this one might be more specific to higher ed facilities than state fleet. You might be a little bit better on being able to turn over those vehicles, but 17 years, I mean, y'all know that's old. And when you start just talking about replacing just parts that are no longer in warranty, it really starts to add up and could be a safety concern as well. And so that's when, you know, we talk about the risk management stakeholders being happy when we start to talk about fleet analysis. Vehicles averaging under 5,000 miles per year. So you mean 23 of 45. So 51% of their vehicles are averaging less than 5,000 miles. And then remember, they're 17-year-old vehicles. So just, you know, these are the sort of things that you start to look at and realize, okay, maybe that's not what we thought when we thought about the usage of our fleet and how we can start to, as we call it, right size. So as we continue to talk, I'm interested, can you think of an example where a small wheel vehicle could replace a large wheel vehicle in your fleet? And Lauren is going to pop that up. Good, we got about half people voting. Wake up. If you're in Georgia, I know it's probably rainy. It might be raining up the East Coast too. All right, so a lot of you, oh my gosh, so 91% of you are saying yes. You know, I didn't put this in a poll question, but I'd be interested in how many of you also would have to convince somebody that they no longer needed a full-size vehicle and that they could be in one of these, you know, very nice customized small wheel vehicles to do the job for them. So when we talk about implementation plans, so you just said, okay, yes, we could definitely replace some of our large wheel vehicles with a small wheel vehicle. This is just an example of a third-party fleet provider, and we've worked with some of them, and they have ability to utilize some of our vehicles in their fleet. But it's just, you know, it's this journey, right? We are, you are, when you're looking at your fleet, constantly in a journey of, are we looking at the sustainability portion of it? Are we looking at right sizing it? And so I think it's important to remember that that is a journey and to partner with folks who kind of can help you figure out what it is that you need, whether it is connectivity, whether it is action zones, or is it just a more customized vehicle to truly meet your employees' needs? And then once you make those decisions, how do we get the buy-in of our employees? And I think that goes back to that slide I just showed you. When you truly look at the data on how these employees are using the vehicles, it's very eye-opening on what you truly need to get the job done, whether it's, you know, Capitol grounds, a state park, a college campus. You know, there's definitely use cases where these vehicles are going to allow your employees actually more access and, you know, the ability to get closer to the work that they're doing, and maybe even actually make their job a little bit easier based on some of those customizations. And so having that buy-in from them, once you kind of walk through, this is why we're going to make that change, is really important. So some key takeaways for you today. It's not a golf cart, right? We broke that stereotype. It's not a golf cart. Asking the questions and asking them questions of your employees and making them a part of understanding the decision, maybe to move from a large wheel to a small wheel, or even just reducing the size of the fleet. It might be important. And, you know, we have to be honest with ourselves too. I'm the one presenting this, but maybe it is moving from a small wheel to a large wheel. Maybe they are carrying too many things in the back of that, or maybe they're using an old used golf cart, truly an old used golf cart. And that's when you need to look at maybe a small wheel vehicle and not a golf cart. So it's asking the right questions so that you can right size your fleet and realize that it is a journey. You know, I did not spend a whole hour talking to you because I'd really love for you guys to be able to ask questions. You know, that's kind of what I'm here for. We have a whole team of dedicated folks who do these fleet analysis. They're free. We don't charge you for them. We have great data tool sets where we can sit down and really help you kind of analyze some of this stuff and then figure out if some of our vehicles would then be able to help you meet some of those needs. So with that, you guys do have the chat functionality available to you to ask questions, or if folks want to come off mute, I'm okay with that. Lauren, I don't know if that's against the rules, but I'm used to breaking the rules. So if you guys want to come off mute and ask any questions, I'm happy to address those, or you can reach out after this and I can answer any questions that you might have. Oh, I do see one about what recommendations do you have for getting drivers to change expectations, changing from a pickup truck to one of these. So I think I kind of hit on that. I mean, it's a lot about buy-in, right? So any sort of change management is about buy-in. And oftentimes when you say you're giving them a survey, they automatically set the expectation that that's what you're going to do no matter what. And I think that when you kind of flip the script and say, no, let's look at the jobs you're really doing and understand if the vehicle we have for you really meets your needs, and kind of help them be a part of that decision-making process, we found that that is a lot more effective. And then just looking at some of the, we do have creature comforts in these small wheel vehicles. People have USB ports now on pretty much all of these, right? The cup holder is going to fit your Yeti just like the Ford F-150 does. Like, what are those? And yes, and I know the biggest creature comfort is probably heating and air conditioning. So we do have some of the forced air and cabs of our vehicles if they're not an open air vehicle. And then again, looking at, is there a certain time of year that you use these because you have sustainability goals? There's no one, I don't think there's one answer to how you use your fleet on a daily basis, right? Maybe in the summer, you always use these vehicles based on wherever you are. So it's making sure they're comfortable with that change. And maybe it's, again, it is a journey. So I would not recommend necessarily switching everything out at once, right? Maybe you have 2 employees and you switch to 1 and they rotate who's using what, and making sure that they're comfortable with what they have, and let them be a part of the demo process. So if you bring a manufacturer on campus, let them be a part of that. I find that the end users who use our vehicles tend to ask the better questions, right? Because they're the ones using it. And they tend to know what they're looking for a little bit better when it comes to their daily job. So making them a part of the process and just letting them, as much as we're asking them the questions, letting them ask us the questions always goes really well. Okay, so what are some of the differences in small wheeled vehicles that are roadworthy, maybe requires a title, and those that cannot be driven on the main roadways? So great question. So LSV, low speed vehicles, are the vehicles that are the ones that we are going to title. They have, they require, the horn, the lights, and I think one of my colleagues is on here, Russell Miller, type in the box, the specifics that I'm not going to get right. Horn, there we go, are plated like other vehicles, but cannot travel on roads over 35 miles an hour. And Russell, remind me what they include. It's the horn, lights. Let's see how fast Russell types.
I'll take it off mute for a second.
Okay.
Yeah, horn, lights, turn signals. Windshield wiper in almost every state. And there is an LSV law for every state now. So it was, strangely enough, Connecticut and Pennsylvania were like the last two to officially adopt an LSV compliant language in their DOT laws, that now they all are.
And Russell, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit about seat belts. I think that's one we get a lot. And I just, be very careful in really looking at when you put seat belts on these vehicles. And Russell, it is because of ROPS, right? So
that's right. So thank you. Other important things to know: on low speed vehicles have to meet a certain level of crush test, a rollover test. Our vehicle, actually, we take it to a different level. We take it to the, and I'm blanking on which standard, but we take it to the standard of ROPS, rollover protection, and they do have to have seat belts. The opposite is true for the non-street legal versions. So for the campus type vehicles, for the ones you're using on your campgrounds, maybe you're using around the Capitol grounds, other municipal locations, if it's non-street legal, we recommend that you do not have seat belts on them.
I think it's SAEJ something. There's a technical title, and I'm pretty sure if you Google it, which is what I do most of the time, it'll tell you. But yeah, that's real important. I think just as you are looking at some of these vehicles, make sure that while if you have a requirement to have seat belts, please look at that, because not every manufacturer does that, and it truly is a safety issue. We actually try to pride ourselves on being more automotive. We actually have a road load simulator, and we do all of our testing, our safety testing, the same way automotive does. And I like to just point that out, because oftentimes we get pressured into maybe a less expensive option, but just do a little bit of due diligence when it comes to some of those safety requirements, because they're not all the same. And like I said, our team's always happy to answer those questions for you. We've got great safety folks who keep us in line.
Yeah, and as fleet administrators, many of you probably do have UTVs that are high-speed UTVs in your fleets that may be used for power line, work on power lines on the side of highways, and you will see some of those. Most of those will have seatbelts because they can go anywhere from 40 to 80 miles per hour. So that's a really different class of vehicle than what we're talking about today.
So I did see you answered a question in the chat for me, Russell. Thank you, that the capacity does remain the same on those on-road vehicles. And then Jasmine said, are you seeing more LSV in the law enforcement environment? I'm really glad Russell joined because he gets to help answer some of these questions.
Funny enough, yes, we do see LSVs in law enforcement oftentimes, but they're limited to 25 miles an hour, so they can be outrun to a certain degree. I have actually seen in some cities, I've seen the really high speed UTVs outfitted as law enforcement vehicles. I'm sure some of you have as well as fleet administrators. So.
Yeah, great. Another good question just came in. Do you have annual maintenance cost or maintenance parameters on electric club cars? How long will batteries last? Yeah, great question. So it depends on the type of vehicle, right? So we do offer lithium batteries in our true golf cart vehicles. We're working on VOC, voice of customer data around lithium batteries and maintenance-free batteries in some of the vehicles I showed you today. So if you have any input on that, let me know. I'd love to hear from you on it. In terms of maintenance costs, we can look up the annual maintenance cost. Russell, I don't know off the top of my head. A lot of our dealers, so Club Car is the manufacturer, but you actually work with a local dealer when you purchase one of our vehicles. And that's pretty much how all of our competitors go to market. It's similar to, a car dealership. And so a lot of those local dealers will do maintenance programs for you. If you haven't looked into it, I highly recommend it. There's a lot of, when we look at connectivity on our vehicles, what we work with our dealers to do is kind of create a preventative maintenance, right? Because they're tracking those vehicles. They can also track the maintenance that they're doing on it. And so we can do preventative maintenance. The connectivity allows you to monitor the batteries and monitor the health of the batteries so that you can make sure, are they getting watered? Are we doing all of the right things? Are we charging them correctly to make sure that they last longer? In general, if I had to do a general rule of thumb, the batteries can depend. It's just hard because depending on use, it can be anywhere from 3 to 4 years. But if they're not taken care of correctly, which we know happens, right? People don't often treat the batteries correctly, then that is when you start to see, them having to be replaced much sooner. And nobody likes being in one of those vehicles and having it die.
So I might have missed part of it because I was starting to type the question. You had mentioned earlier just plugging the units into a regular outlet. Mm-hmm. Am I correct in assuming that they're also compatible with like level 2 EV charging stations, or are they not compatible? Because I know there's also DC fast charging. You had mentioned the AC plug and whatnot. So is there something we need to worry about with cross plugging?
Russell?
No, that's a great question, and it's one that I put to the one of the larger manufacturers, ChargePoint. No, these are not set up to use level 2 chargers. So this is what you consider a level 1 charge. So just like a Tesla and a Leaf, you can plug it into an AC outlet if you want to wait 10 hours. But these are definitely just 120 volt type of plugs that you're going to use, no matter and it's really agnostic to the brand. That's pretty universal across all 36, 48, 72 volt small wheel electric vehicles. But the question I had asked ChargePoint was, I was like, well, do you ever put an AC outlet on one of your, do your customers ever ask for that? And they said that oftentimes people ask them not to do that because people will come charge other stuff. So it was an interesting point that they were making.
Jasmine asked a great question. What's the availability of replacement batteries on electric club cars? At least in Georgia, we have some issue finding replacement batteries for EVs sometimes, and when we're having difficulties finding repair facilities, technicians as well for certain EVs. Can you speak to the availability of the replacement batteries and or repair facilities or technicians for small wheel EVs? Yes, so it's really going to depend on manufacturer, right? So what I mentioned earlier around dealer networks, and you should be able to go to any manufacturer's dealer site and do a dealer locator, and that's what's going to really drive whether or not you are able to find that repair facility or technician, and it will definitely vary. Some of our competitors really struggle in that area. I know that this past year has been really difficult for us in general, just because of manufacturing and parts. So I'm going to be very transparent with everyone right now. But so when they had that Texas storm, gosh, I don't even know what month it is because they all run together. There was a certain chemical that actually makes the foam for seats. So nobody could get seats for whether it was a car manufacturer or us. And so we've all just been really impacted on that. So I'm hoping that it's been more recent that you've had that issue and not further back, but oftentimes some of the manufacturers overseas, we see some of those products coming into the market more and more because of price point. And when we talk to customers, I was actually down at Palmetto Bluff doing some voice of customer. I wish I was staying because that place is amazing, but they had bought these like mini buses from China and then they thought they were great. They demoed great. And then they couldn't get any parts. So that's actually a great question when you're looking at right sizing your fleet and doing your fleet analysis and partnering with some of these folks. How hard is it for you to get those things, and what are your lead times generally? Because lead times right now, I assure you, are not normal lead times, and we're hoping to get out of that real soon. So. Russell, anything you would add? Russell's worked for other manufacturers, so he might offer a little bit more different insight.
What I just did was I sent Jasmine just a direct note with my email address. Happy to connect her with dealers that are reliable, trustworthy, good people in the state of Georgia. We have a number of them. And they carry batteries that will work with all the major brands. So, and that's really true of every state. There should be availability of quality people that understand these types of vehicles. Now, if you're talking EVs, when again, the Leaf, and I know a lot of people have the Chevy Volts in their fleets, and maybe even the Bolts. Leafs, we're seeing a lot of Leafs in fleet pools as well. Those we're not as familiar with. So if you're referring to that, we wouldn't know. But if it's in the category that we've shown today, we can certainly connect you with really good quality people, no matter where you are in the country.
Yeah, that's the thing too, that, we're in an interesting, unique role because we're the manufacturer. So we're not the ones that actually sell through. So again, anytime you guys need assistance or questions, please reach out. I mean, that's something that, we pride ourselves in doing, is being transparent and being able to answer those questions. And if it's negative, then let us know that too. I mean, we can't get better if we don't get that feedback from you guys. And I have found that this organization is by far the best when it comes to actually engaging with the vendors and the sponsors. And so that's why we continue to want to partner with you guys in this group. So. Anybody else? Any other questions we can answer for you? We'll give you a little bit of time back on your calendar, because I'm sure anyone in the Southeast is probably going to need to figure out how to deal with gas for their fleets, because it's crazy here right now.
So one other question, because they're electric versions, do you know, are there any grants or other funding specific to these units?
Well, funny you should ask that. We actually do a grant every year. It's actually specific to higher ed. We give away one vehicle a year. That is kind of our way of helping schools achieve sustainability goals and follow them along on the process. But yes, there are grants. It's different by state. I mean, it's, you know, if you have any interns this summer, it's a great little project to put them on. If you're partnering with sustainability folks, usually most states and schools now have a sustainability department, and reaching out to them and finding out if they can support you by starting to search through some of those things. There at one point, and it's been years and years ago, they did a tax credit on LSVs. They have not said they're going to do that again, but things like that do pop up. So yeah, it's just doing a little bit of research, and then Club Car will launch their 2021 grant in July, and we just so last year, actually in January, we delivered College of Charleston one of our 411 vehicles, and so they are using that on campus. It's kind of a neat story because they're such an urban footprint right in the middle of downtown Charleston. So so if you're at a college or university, we have a grant for you, but otherwise you just kind of have to do a little bit of research. So good question. All right. And Lauren is reminding you to redefining the fleet role is the next webinar. So make sure you guys register for that. Thank you for your time. Please, don't hesitate to reach out. Like I said, we have a dedicated team. And Kathy just asked, can I talk more about the grants? Kathy, do you have a specific question I can answer?
I was just wondering, so we are at a university. Did you say you do have some grants available?
Yeah, we do. If you want to send me a direct note afterwards, it's just catherine.sturba@clubcar.com. I will, I can tell you more about it, but yeah, we do a grant for, it's for one free vehicle, like no strings attached, other than I might come visit your campus and take lots of pictures. Other than that. Gotcha. Yeah, so it's just our way of kind of continuing to help support sustainability goals in the higher ed space. We can see if we can get one for state fleet administrators. I'll have to try and figure out where to find money for that. But
Catherine, I'm reminded that, for state fleet administrators, a lot of the municipalities sort of roll up under y'all, and a lot of municipalities will have their own sustainability initiatives, and your local resources on the ground there, your city, an example, City of Raleigh, I know for a fact, like the City of Raleigh sustainability manager and the City of Raleigh fleet manager got together to help with sustainability, helping to pay the way for some of the sustainability goals within fleet. So I know that was one example. So I think there's probably more of that going on than we know. I think it's just make sustainability people your friends, and they will find money.
Yeah. And again, when I said don't hesitate to reach out. So our team, we don't travel right now. Eventually we'll get back out there, but we've got a pretty wide network. I know you guys do too, but those sorts of examples, if you need stuff like that, let us know if we can connect you guys. I think that's really the goal of this organization. And so while we can't be in person yet, at least we can all kind of share experiences and help you get connected if there's a possibility there. So. All right, well, you guys have a wonderful rest of your day and wonderful rest of your week. Appreciate the opportunity, and don't hesitate to reach out to myself, and I'll connect you with my Wizard of Oz behind the screen, Russell, anytime. Thankful for him for being able to help answer some of those technical questions today. So thank you, everyone.